A very good evening to you, and allow me to address you as fellow learners. Pearls of wisdom have been flowing through the 5 speakers that we've already had. And this journey, I would definitely like to begin with extending my sincere gratitude to Team Orbis for putting up this whole platform for exchanging ideas, for TEDx that is present in over 170 countries, inspiring each one of us. But my credit list does not end here. I definitely would also want to say a big thank you to my life coaches, my parents, for the values inculcated in me, for the upbringing that I had. A big shout out to my teachers. Learning that hasn't stopped. Teachers still ever so present in my life. A big thank you to my family. I would say the strongest backing that I have in my life is the ecosystem that exists at home. But a big thank you for the last 28 years, having interacted with more than 1 million students. I don't have the count of the teachers' orientation programs or exchanging ideas with parents and principals. These, in many ways, are my gurus. So I don't want you to misunderstand that all the ideas that I'm going to share with you are mine. I want to give my due credit because these are my gurus who have nudged me to reach this far. As a human race, we are evolving. We are still work in progress. We've seen through so much. The Stone Age, Ice Age, Agri Age, Steel Age, Locomotive Age, Industrial Age, IT Age, Globalization Age, and the lockdown age, which all of us have witnessed. Many of the ages that I mentioned here, we have only read or we have heard. But this one, we have surely experienced. Doesn't end here. We are into a digital age. While we traverse through this journey of life, and I am going to be pushing the rewind button and the forward button, but in this remote called life, there is one button that you and I need to press as often as possible. And that button on our remote is to pause, to take a break, breathe. Many a times in the razzle and dazzle of life, we forget to breathe. Now some of you already wondering, everybody here is breathing. But then to be conscious of our breath, few moments before going to bed tonight, breathe. As soon as you wake up tomorrow morning, breathe. Because every breath that we take is a solution. All the speakers ahead of me already mentioned, challenges will come. One of the speakers mentioned like knots. And every knot that we have in our life is just a breath away. Because here, fellow learners, we as countries are evolving. Families are evolving. Communities are evolving. And the good old saying was that it takes a village to raise a child. Oops, village. Where are the villages gone? So here when we are looking at this missing element of a village to raise a child, we all grew up with ideas of a community as one family. Some of us were or still a part of a joint family. And now the joint family has become a nuclear family. Nuclear family in today's world where 4 stay under one roof all by themselves. क्योंकि मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर ये बातें करते हैं. Families which are offline and more online. And in families, when we've seen a choir of the school performing, we've some master stroke, I'm sure we'll have a redefining and a new name for the song, The Drummer Boy, because we have witnessed a drummer girl today. Children come home injured. Now look at the change in the ecosystem. And everyone here, even though we haven't gone through the basics of first aid, we definitely need to know what we do to treat our children who come home injured. First aid kit, a little bit of Dettol and some bandage if the wound is a little deeper. We do a little medical aid required, run to the hospital, get some stitches done. We know all this. But in the world that we live today, our children also come home with some injuries that cannot be seen. Here, we miss the village that helped raise a child. While we have absolutely no medical experience to treat this, from the world of experience that I come from, also prompts me to believe that we don't need much of psychotherapy to handle this. Just the tender love and care that we expressed when our children came home injured like this is the same tender love and care that we need to extend when they come with injuries like this. Marks not up to the mark. Some performance didn't go well. Somebody said yes, somebody said no. So many things they come up with. And the ecosystem at home is something that you and I need to be thinking about. Well, growing up children, and when I can see so many of these pearls here, 4 factors that determine our growth: time, home, education, and friends. Well, fellow learners, we can compare bringing up children in shaping up these pearls of today and tomorrow as clay on a potter's wheel. Wheel represents time. Time and tide waits for none. The potter's 2 hands, one representing education, the other home. One exerts pressure while one extends support. And the water that the potter uses in between is friends, an important and integral part of our upbringing. Here, when we are looking in terms of friends, we have friends in the real world and we have also online friends. लेकिन हर एक friend जरूरी होता है. Here, when we are looking at terms of the ecosystem at home, our scripture reminds us that home is where a child receives courage, wisdom, and character. These 3 don't come from schools. This comes from the home. Wisdom, we're talking in courage and character. So, fellow learners, what you and I leave behind for our children doesn't matter as much as what we leave in them. So there is so much to do. I'm sure this is what has prompted the likes of Saint Mother Teresa to remind each one of us, quote, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family, unquote. School, on the other hand, is a seat of knowledge, discipline, and talents. A place where these 3 are nurtured. So knowledge, discipline, and talents. Evolving, as I said, it's a process. We are work in progress. Reaching out to my fellow learners, especially to parents and educators. There is so much more that we need to do. The ecosystem called school paves the path to success. But the ecosystem at home is what makes one capable. So here when we are looking in terms of the industry demand, and so many of you who represent different industries, what are the industries looking for in an individual who's coming into their organization? Two basic requirements. One is the ones who have the ability to think critically, critical thinking. And the second is those who are good in conflict resolution. So here when we are talking in terms of critical thinking and conflict resolution, I'm sure what the world wants is the survival of the fittest. And I'm sure many of you will agree, because in the rat race that all of us are in, it is always survival of the fittest. My fellow learners, can you please explain to me how come this and this mammal went extinct? Because this was the fittest during its time. Fellow learners, it never was, it never is, it never will be survival of the fittest. If at all there is survival, it is only survival of the adaptable. Those of us who are able to adapt to the change happening around are the ones who survive. Fellow learners, the family now becomes the seat of values and technology. Our homes are incomplete if there is only value and no technology. Our homes are incomplete if there is only technology and no values. Both need to coexist at the same time. So here the key word throwing across to these pearls is self-development. When we talk in terms of development, can you jog through your mind and think of some developed countries? Well, let me remind you, every country that flashes in your mind is now at war, either directly or indirectly. Is this a sign of development? Will a developed country foster peace, or a developed country take sides in a war? Developed people divided over culture, divided over religion, divided over sexual preferences, divided over gender, divided over language, so many divisions. What then would you and I classify, categorize as being developed? I would like to share three ideas. Being developed in today's world would be people who are strong from within. Individuals who know their capabilities. And individuals who are good for society. So here when we streamline this whole self-development, fellow learners, especially parents and educators, it's time for us to learn, unlearn, and relearn some of our core values. We are awaiting at the dawn of a new India. But also let us be mindful of an eternal India that never left. The mantra for today is to think global, but to act local. The diversity of culture, the diversity of our individual nature, and also the blend of technology that has come into India is something that awaits these pearls. So quick recap. For us to have an ecosystem where there is coexistence of values and technology, enough time taken by each one of us to breathe, to be adaptable to these changing times, making ourselves strong from within, capable, and becoming good for society. So as we dwell on this topic of the world as an oyster, I look at these beautiful pearls in the making. Fellow learners, especially parents and educators, we are not done yet. We can't call them the lost generation because a fruit is known by its tree. There is so much we still need to do for them to make this place a better world, for each one of us to become an oyster in which we hold these pearls of today and tomorrow. Thank you so much, and God bless us all.